Welcome, one and all. This is the Ancient Journey. On today's journey, Timothy's Blue Blanket. Before we get started, don't forget, if you enjoy our content, hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. Now let's get started. They say that justice is blind. They never tell you that justice can also be slow. And the worst kept secret is, justice doesn't always serve the victim. Some 30 years ago, on a warm Memorial Day weekend, a carnival came to town in Sayreville, New Jersey. The nip of spring evenings was slowly rolling into the pleasant breezes of summer nights, and little Timothy Wiltsey was quite excited about the start of his summer. Timothy, who's just 5, excitedly stared at the rides, took in the sights, sounds, and smells of what might have been his first carnival. Children squealed in delight, rides blared their music, and the air was permeated by the smell of popcorn and funnel cakes. But then, in an instant, the dreamy landscape of the carnival turned into a nightmare for Timothy's mother, Michelle Lazinski. She turned her back to purchase a drink just a moment, and when she turned around, Timothy was gone. At 7:30 p.m. and soon police, firefighters, and volunteers are searching for the boy, and the carnival is shut down as the search continued until 2 a.m. The search even continued into the next morning with 300 people searching John F. Kennedy Park, the location of the carnival. A helicopter assisted in the search, and diving units searched the ponds in the park. The park's only about 10 acres big, about 10 football fields. Police call off the search at noon, satisfied that they've searched the entire area and that little Timothy is no longer in the park after the entire day's searching. Volunteers hand out 4,000 missing persons flyers, and police check into various tips called into them, but nothing turns up Timothy's location. Timothy's father is eliminated as a suspect. He was at home several states away at the time of the disappearance. Timothy's story airs on America's Most Wanted television program, and a missing persons flyer for Timothy begins to be distributed nationwide. Timothy's mother, Michelle, tells press in an interview that she will not give up hope her son will be found. Michelle strikes the pose of a brave mother during the interview. Everyone's waiting to see a grieving mother on TV break down, crying, hysterical, because the public, they thrive on that stuff. But I'm not going to do it. While some people applaud her bravery in the face of such a great loss, many see Michelle as cold and disinterested. What mother could behave this way after losing a little boy? Behind the scenes, Lazinski is acting even stranger. On June 7th, 1991, Michelle Lazinski tells police that a woman she knew was at the carnival that night. She calls her Ellen and tells an elaborate story about her. Michelle said that Ellen agreed to watch Timothy so Michelle could go buy a soda, and when she returned, Ellen was gone. So too were the 2 men and little girl Michelle said was with Ellen at the time. And also gone, sadly, was her son Timothy. Michelle said she held this detail secret because she was concerned of how it would look and that she'd get into trouble. It would be a year until the detail of Michelle's story changing would ever be heard by the public. A week later, Farmland Dairies begins to print pictures of Timothy on their milk containers, adding a description of the missing boy and looking for help in finding him. On June 13th, Lazinski is interviewed by the New Jersey State Police, and she changes her story again. Michelle now tells police that one of the men that was with her friend Ellen that night threatened her with a knife and made comments about Timothy's safety before he took the boy. Michelle said that the man told her that she might see Timothy again, maybe in a month or so, and she might get a call from him. Michelle said she held this information back because she was concerned that if she had gone to the police, the man would hurt Timothy. After hours of questions about this new version of what happened, Michelle ends up in an emergency room being treated for hyperventilation. That chapter, the one that's summer of 1991, it slowly closes with no sign of Timothy. Halloween, that sure sign of fall, approaches, and a frightening discovery is made. Behind the Raritan Center complex in Edison, New Jersey, just about 20 minutes from the carnival where Timothy disappeared, a passerby sees something strange in the woods. It's a children's shoe, just lying there all by itself. On the side of the shoe is a small green cartoon character, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, meaning this shoe matches the description of the shoes worn by Timothy the night he disappeared. A month goes by, but nothing else is found, and neither are Michelle's emotions. Michelle faces a room full of reporters in late November and states, "I don't show emotion in public, and I don't think I should have to, just because someone wants me to." Thanksgiving turns into Christmas, and Christmas turns into New Year's, and before you know it, Easter appears on the calendar, and just after Easter, police reveal that after nearly a year of searching, they have found Timothy. Police did not give up searching for Timothy in the area where that shoe was found, and there, around a creek meandering through the Edison complex, they find a human skull, a pillowcase, a blanket, a balloon, and remains of clothing. Dental records from the skull are matched to Timothy, and Michelle is summoned to the police station once again to discuss his disappearance. But police have reached a proverbial dead end. Timothy's remains do not indicate how he died, and Michelle is sticking to her story about Ellen and her two male friends, one of whom she claimed took off with Timothy. Police publicly announced on May 18th that Michelle's story has been changing, but Michelle's story is about to get a whole lot stranger. Michelle has a longtime friend who is a police officer. He's been accused of using a police computer to trace license plates of cars that Michelle is telling him are following her. In January of 1994, Michelle is about to be subpoenaed in the case to testify. But before that can happen, Lazinski is found wandering the streets of Detroit. Michelle claims she was abducted by two men who claim to be FBI agents. The FBI, involved in the investigation because of her kidnapping claim, are immediately skeptical, and even more so when they find out Michelle appears to have just been trying to dodge a subpoena. In 1994, Michelle's police officer friend, well, he ends up not being charged. But Michelle is charged with faking her kidnapping. She admits to making the story up and receives 3 years probation. And it's not too long before Michelle is in trouble once again. In 1998, she receives another 3 years probation for stealing a laptop from an employer and giving it away as a Christmas gift. She also receives a day in jail along with 4 months of house arrest. As I said in the beginning, justice can be slow. This case is no exception. We now arrive near Memorial Day weekend, this time in 2011, some 20 years after Timothy's disappearance. The county prosecutor in New Jersey has offered a new reward for more information in the case. 3 more years go by. Lizinski has been living in Florida. While she is building a new life for herself in the Sunshine State, prosecutors have been building a case against her back in New Jersey, and a grand jury has been convened and has indicted her for the murder of Timothy. In March of 2016, the trial of Michelle begins. During the trial, the items discovered near Timothy are revealed. One of the items recovered, a large blanket, is claimed to have belonged to Timothy. Lizinski's niece, who would babysit Timothy, identifies it as one she recognized from visits to their home. 2 other babysitters would testify to the same thing. Also brought to light was the fact that Michelle was quite familiar with the area where Timothy's remains were found. She was employed by a company that had a warehouse in the same industrial park. Michelle's demeanor and her changing stories are also reviewed for the jury. And your question might be, why did it take so long to charge Michelle? And the answer is that there are 2 sides to the story. There had been no trace evidence found on the blanket, and no trace evidence found on the remains of Timothy in 1992. A cause of death could not be determined. The blanket had been shown to Lizinski and her parents in 1992, and they all denied having seen it before. In fact, prosecutors at the time had so little evidence, they declined to charge Michelle with anything. In fact, despite the smoking gun that the blanket had become, there were still witnesses during the current trial who stated that they had never seen the blanket before. All of the photos that were in evidence from Michelle's apartment all those years ago, the blanket is not visible in any of the photos. As it turns out, the only new evidence since the first time prosecutors had declined to even charge Michelle with a crime was her niece identifying the blanket. But that doesn't matter. On May 18th, 2016, having heard the case in full, a jury finds Michelle guilty of the murder of Timothy. During the trial, the jury foreman was found to have been doing online research about the trial and was dismissed. Michelle's lawyers ask for a new trial. They argue that with so little evidence, any verdict would have only been speculation, and they argue that the jury had been tainted by the jury foreman doing online research and being dismissed. The judge rejects their request, and Michelle is sentenced to 30 years in prison. But remember, the gears of justice grind away slowly. Over the next 4 years, Michelle's appeal for a new trial makes it all the way to the Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey. Arguments there begin in 2020 and continue for the better part of a year. And shockingly, the Supreme Court decision ends in a tie. Of the 7 justices on the bench, 1 has recused themselves, and the court is deadlocked, 3-3. In June of 2021, Michelle's attorneys seek the appointment of a judge who would serve as a tiebreaker to help decide the case. It is an unprecedented second look at a case by the Supreme Court of New Jersey. And on December 28th, 2021, the New Jersey Supreme Court, with tiebreaker judge appointed, overturns her conviction 4-3. Michelle walks free. The jurors in the case are outraged at their verdict being set aside. In addition to their rage comes a loss of hope that anyone will ever be held accountable for Timothy's murder. Due to the double jeopardy rule of law, Michelle cannot be charged a second time for Timothy's murder. She is now home with her family, a free woman. It turns out the jurors didn't all agree on the murder charge initially, but it was reported they all agreed that Michelle had been lying about what happened to Timothy that night. And eventually, they did all come to an agreement on the murder charge. Even Michelle's brother thought she still belonged in jail for what had happened to Timothy. In a 2 decades long case, justice slowly moved forward. Despite what looked like an obvious guilty verdict, justice remained blind. And in the end, the one who needed justice more than anyone else, little Timothy, was the only one not to receive it. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing the journey.